Hello there.
It's showtime.
What is this, trick or treat?
Did I do that?
I'm Sailor Moon, the champion of justice.
Daddy would have gotten us Uzis.
The power is yours.
My name is Grace Jones.
Thundercats.
Power of 3 will set us free. Power of 3 will set us free. Power of 3 will set us free.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk here.
Vamp is a new motion picture about young love, unusual love, romantic love, most of all, eternal love. My name is Grace Jones, and I am the modern bloodsucker in Vamp.
A frightening comedy, rated R.
Welcome to an all-new season of the Radical Retro Rewind podcast. As always, I am your host, Ryan Hunter, and we are back, episode 40, with everyone's favorite brother, David. We are officially a year old as of September 25th. We've made it a whole year. And what better to do, David, for our comeback episode than 1986 Vamp, starring Grace Jones.
This movie goes from a comedy to a horror to a comedy again. But hi, everybody.
We know we will be laughing a lot today because there's a lot that goes on in Vamp. And like David said, is it all funny or is it all horror?
A little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll up in here.
Last year, David, when we did Pee Wee Herman's Christmas special, we saw Grace Jones being mailed to the White House. And during that episode, I had mentioned that in the new year, we would do a Grace Jones extravaganza. So this is kind of in between. It might not be the full-on Grace Jones extravaganza, but we are serving you Grace Jones.
Realness.
I mean, this is Grace Jones, really. This is Grace Jones playing Grace Jones, possibly.
Yeah, that's kind of the image that I get from it, honestly. I don't think she was really acting. It's like when I think I've said this before, maybe a different podcast, or maybe not. Like when Courtney Love did The People versus Larry Flint, and she played like a heroin addict acting crazy. She got like an award, I think, for it. It was like critically acclaimed for being herself at the time. No offense to her, as far as I think she's cleaned herself up and everything, but you were playing a junkie, for lack of a better term. I know it sounds crude. She was playing herself at the time, so it wasn't that difficult.
I was doing some research, and evidently, David, Grace Jones thought it would be best to stay in character the whole time. But that meant for her to become nocturnal. They could not reach Grace Jones ever when they needed to get her on set. One time, a matter of fact, she was in Paris doing a fashion show without telling them, and she said, "I knew you wouldn't mind." They ended up, David, having to hire a woman whose only job was to hold a beeper when the studio needed to reach her because she would not contact them or call them back to be there for her. I suppose be a liaison to her in the studio.
That is some Naomi Campbell shit up in there. That is some Naomi Campbell. I will be 3 hours late to the fashion show.
I was gonna say, I think Grace Jones honestly started this because she is famously known for arriving 4 hours late, perform one song, and then leave. So Grace has a history with this. And also, I do love this, that she will not perform until she gets the money, because she's had issues before that they don't give her the money. So she's gotten to a point that she said, nope, I need the money in my hand before I even come.
There ain't nothing wrong with that.
But this really was a Grace Jones vehicle. But I also have this. One of the people who worked on the movie said, Grace Jones doesn't have a lot of range, but she has presence. So the writer ended up removing her character's lines just to allow Grace Jones to just be a presence on screen. What do you think about that?
I actually, having watched this movie over recently, thought the same thing. You have this very powerful force of nature for a woman. I honestly, I view her like, I put her up there with like Eartha Kitt, these very powerful. I don't know how to describe it. Like people, like you said, when they walk into a room, they have a presence. They command a certain respect or presence, or you're in awe, gawking at them. I was actually shocked. I said to myself, she hasn't said anything. The whole, like, this is the only movie that she's the main character, pretty much. I mean, she is the main. She's the villain. She's the bad guy. I mean, obviously, you have the other characters that interact with her, but for the most part, it's basically a four-piece ensemble. There's other characters, but those are the four main characters: the two boys, the blonde girl, and Grace Jones, or Katrina.
Her only audible line is a laugh. I mean, and I gotta say, she does the laugh really good, but that is the only thing she does in that movie.
Some people just honestly just have it, and that's the thing. Like, there are some people that don't have to say much, and whether it's I don't know how to describe it. It makes for an interesting movie where you're one of the main, you're the main character, the villain, and you don't say anything. Like, it's not a silent film. It's not Nosferatu. It's not like it's not Nosferatu. It's not like the silent films of the 20s. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's interesting because there's a part of the movie where we haven't changed much. The Radical Retro Rewind, we're still jumping around. There's a part of the movie where the guy goes back in the back, and she almost looks like she's sweet, innocent, like she's hiding behind something. Like, I'm shy, and I'm like, you're not shy.
I don't think anyone has ever described Grace Jones as shy.
Oh my God! What movie was she in? What was it? Boomerang. With Eddie Murphy, when the perfume was the scent of her vagina. Is that what?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember.
And she literally takes down her underwear and she's like, "This is sex. This is what you will smell." Oh God, I love her. I love her for who she is.
Radical ones. Let's get back to the premise of the movie. This is Halloween season, so Vamp is a horror comedy. That's what I'm putting it as. I don't know what it's listed as. Is it just listed as horror?
It's definitely supposed to be a comedy. Yeah,
it's a horror comedy. I'm excited. It's Halloween season. This is one of my favorite times of year. So the premise of the movie is there are two young guys who want to get into a frat house. They're trying to impress
Keith and AJ.
They're trying to impress their potential frat brothers. You start off with them doing some sort of like a hazing initiation for the college. Like, they're supposed to be like,
but that's beyond, David. This fraternity must have watched some like old Hammer 70s horror films and like, this is a cool way to haze people. We'll pretend to hang them in their underwear.
Well, that couldn't hurt.
Did you recognize Nightmare on Elm Street 2? Boy Toy, who also always plays the shirtless sex symbol in these movies. So AJ was the gentleman in Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
So basically, they're trying to get into a fraternity. The fraternity, and to impress the guys in the fraternity, they're gonna have a big party. They're offering to pay for or get the alcohol, party favors, so to speak, and the guys say they want a stripper. So remember, this is the 80s, so getting a stripper was probably like, oh my God, so naughty, I can't believe. Meanwhile, people take their clothes off for a penny. Fans only, or whatever. Only fans.
Low price of $3.99.
You can tell I'm getting to be an old dad. I'm saying everything backwards and wrong. Let me tell a dad joke. You have where they're trying to impress the fraternity brothers. So they go and they find Duncan.
Yeah, Duncan.
Duncan is this Asian guy that has been in a couple of 80s. I remember him in a couple of 80s movies. Plays a wealthy,
geeky, a kid that really has no friends, unfortunately. You see that he's almost using money as a way to have friends, because they're trying to set up that he has no friends because he's a geek. He does have a beautiful plate of various meats. Did you like when he took that out for them?
Listen, he was a good host.
He's a very good host. But Duncan has a car. I'm sorry. So yes, so Duncan has
several cars, actually. So Duncan says, they're like, he's like, well, it'll cost you this much. And they're like, we were hoping you'd do it for a favor for us. He's like, oh, that's different, a favor. So basically, Duncan, and again, I don't want to keep referring to him the Asian guy, but the token Asian dude, they did this in Revenge of the Nerds, and so basically he says if they'll be his friend for a week, he'll let them borrow the car, but he wants to go with them on the adventure to find this stripper.
His whole quote during this whole movie is, "You guys! Hey, you guys!" I think he's like an adorable character.
I liked him. And so they get, which is so funny because, again, this is dating the movie ridiculously.
Is this New York City?
I don't know. Maybe it's Chicago? I don't know. I'm not sure
it's
where
one of those cities, right? It's like a big
city.
So
they actually get a newspaper that has listings for strip clubs and like adult stuff. Like, I don't even think, like, in Arizona, They have a thing called the New Times, which is still like a magazine that like talks about like concerts and clubs and different things.
Oh, it's one of those like free magazines that
and in the back there's still some listings for, I guess, for some like, you know, gentlemen's clubs, but this is the equivalent. Like this is a newspaper, like a free thing you'd pick up back in the day that has like listings for whatever, like personal ads or like, you know, gentlemen's clubs.
And the place only opens after dark.
Is it the After Dark Club?
It's basically a black square with Grace Jones' face on it, and it says the After Dark Club opens after dark.
So AJ does this, eeny, meeny, miny, I pick this one. He goes, this is the place we're going to find the stripper to come back for the fraternity that night, which is even crazier, right? It's supposed to be that?
They need it for that night, that's right. So they have a plan. I mean, it seems that they went out early on in the day, but they literally have to bring the stripper that night after traveling to, I'm assuming, the big city. But David, what happens at this point? There's a part where they're in the car driving, and it's almost like they're transported into another world because the car spins. You hear different radio stations going on, and then they settle and they're in this like alley. So is the car... Was that supposed to be something science fiction-esque with
like
that?
A supernatural event?
Like a supernatural...
I don't know. I didn't read too much into it at the time that I watched it. I don't know why I missed that. I remember them spinning out of control, but I kind of viewed it as they're like these kind of like more wholesome, even though they're going for a stripper, they're more wholesome like country guys, and they're coming to the big city and they're getting abused by... You know, get out of my way, you F you, and kind of, I don't know. That's what I got from that, but it could be. I didn't even... It's
almost like they got transported into this...
They transported into Sin City or something. It was like crazy.
It's like night then all of a sudden. It's like, it almost
well,
like
they're at a diner.
Dark.
They're at a diner. They're getting coffee. Got Duncan, who apparently is using the restroom because, I don't know, maybe he had too many coffees or he's sick, but he's in the bathroom. And you have what appears to be an albino Barbas from Charmed.
Billy Drago, famously, he's been in everything.
He's always a mean guy, you know, and he's always a bad guy. He's always a nasty guy. It's like he has a certain look, so that they, again, talk about being typecast. Like,
oh, definitely.
So,
but it's beyond in this point, right? Like David said, he runs an albino gang.
Yeah, he's an albino Barbas, I'm calling him. And the guy who runs the diner is like, I'm leaving, it's closed. And they walk in.
He puts the priest outfit on. He puts a priest collar on with a cross.
And he's ready to get out, and the albino guy comes in with which looks like with two. They look like hookers, and the one woman is like sucking on a lollipop and like doing all this stuff with her mouth.
Twizzler. She got
and what's his name
Keith.
again? Keith is like looking at her, and he's getting aroused because she's doing all these sexy things. And then she opens her mouth, and she's got like 3 teeth in her mouth, and he freaks out. And then he gets pissed.
His tea out. He spits his
and then she gets pissed, and the albino, like hardcore albino dude, comes over to like rough them up. Duncan's
hiding in the bathroom.
What ensues then is, why do I keep calling? What's the character's name?
Snow.
Snow. Informer. You know, licky boom boom down.
God.
Snow comes.
Informer, you know, say that I'm a snowman, I go glam. I licky boom boom down.
Throws coffee on AJ's fly outfit that is very reminiscent of Saved by the Bell. You know,
we saw in the beginning of this, he likes to have his outfit pressed and perfect. He doesn't like stains and things like that. So this set him off.
So he gets pissed, and Keith is like, uh-oh, now you're in trouble. He jumps up and grabs Snow by the balls and pushes him against the jukebox. And Snow pulls out a knife, and he basically tells him that he's going to rip his balls off if he doesn't put the knife down. The girls try to rough them up, but then he hits them with a chair.
There's a battle ensues.
So you kind of get the idea that AJ is not...
I'm impressed.
AJ might be a pretty boy and whatever, but he doesn't back down from a fight. But he also more angry because they messed up his fly clothes. So then they take off. Duncan finally comes out of the bathroom. He's like, oh, I would have got them if they came into the bathroom. And they head over to the club.
So, David, how would you describe the club? Because I gotta say, the strippers are the most cliched strippers you could ever think of.
I have stuff written down about that.
What is that? There's a construction. There's a.
Oh my god, yeah. So they get in there. The guy asks the
There's a host,
is
right?
he the host / owner of the club who is desperately wants to be in Vegas.
Yeah.
He's like, ID boys or whatever, and basically Duncan has his wad of money and credit cards. He's like, oh, you're fine. He goes in, they'll go in, they sit down, he tells them he wants front row. This is what Duncan says, front row seats. Or something like that, to that effect. And Duncan is ridiculous. He starts singing, I'm in the mood for love, simply because you're naked. He's cute. I mean, he's sweet. I liked him. He's likable. So there's a construction worker dancing. And first of all, she has on a construction belt that I can't describe to you guys because unless they still make them, it's like a carpenter's. Like, it's like when they have that hard, like, leather that almost looks like a skin color. Yeah. And it's like the most unattractive thing for anybody to be wearing.
A hard hat.
Vic goes, hard-headed Hannah, builder of major erections. Let's give her a hand. And it's like
I didn't even notice.
So
it was like, it literally like David, they had a jar in the back with all cliches and they picked out, there's probably construction worker, there's probably painter.
So there's a lot of different strippers.
Biker chick?
There's a biker, like dominatrix chick that goes up to the bar to hand her leather jacket off, and you see AJ looking at her booty.
He's gonna be the one that gets the stripper, basically. Leave it to him, and the other two are just sitting there enjoying the shows.
So, I wanted to add something because I think in a previous episode we discussed this. So when I was a manager for a retail company, I was invited to go to a strip club, and I went. Obviously, I'm gay. I think most of our listeners already know that, but I'm a gay man. I'm not involved with the women.
So this was this was a straight,
straight strip club. Oh my god, I am so asexual when it comes to like when men like strippers. I'm like, don't touch me. Like I could never like go to like Thunder Down Under and like think it's so like Magic Mike kind of thing. It would totally turn me off. I don't know why. So my point is, we went to this strip club and I befriended a couple of strippers. They had kind of told me that they were thinking about having a different lifestyle. They were like, the one girl, her manager, who's also her boyfriend, made her do a lot of things she was not comfortable
That's never
with.
good.
Yeah, and they basically explained to me that they wanted to try something and live a more, I don't know what you want to say, a more
the normal life.
No, conservative or less whatever.
Okay, yes.
I never put anybody down. I'm going to tell you the truth. If I had an amazing body, I would be a stripper because you can make so much money in a short period of time.
Like you said, OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. So anyway, getting back to the story. So I hired 3 of them to work at this place. They tried it. They worked very well. Towards the last, they probably lasted about a month or so.
Retail kills. Talk about stripping kills.
Two of the gals came to me and said, "Listen, we get paid nothing to do this. I can make more in one night than I'm making in 2 weeks." And they said, "This is not for us," and they quit. Fine. The other girl, whose manager used to make her stuff various fruits and vegetables in places that they probably shouldn't go as part of her act.
Oh my god.
She decided to stay on, and she ended up becoming a manager for that company, and good for her. Thank you. However, again, I'm not discarding anybody or discrediting anybody or talking down to. I don't care if you were a stripper, if you whatever. You know what? There's a market for everything, and honestly,
yes, there is.
As long as you're comfortable with your body, yourself, at the end of the day, you can lay your head down on your pillow and whatever. I don't care. Listen, I know we're like a PG show. I mean, let's be honest. We both watched pornography before. We're not virgins. Don't be hypocritical. Yes, it's not something you want to see your daughter doing, obviously. But again, I'm not discrediting anybody. But the funny start of the story is, yes, they said they could make more in one night than they couldn't make in 2 weeks working in retail. So it is what it is. But yes, I was known as one of the managers that hired 3 strippers. The gay manager who hired 3 female strippers. I was hiring them to fluff pillows. Fold pillows and towels.
Could have been dancing though while they were folding. That would have been a double.
Side story. Sorry guys. I don't know if anybody found that interesting or not, but whatever. So they're at the club. They're watching hard-hatted Hannah.
Dee Dee Pfeiffer, which is Michelle Pfeiffer's little sister.
She's so cute.
Plays cute girl that you wonder why she's even in this place. Her name is Allison, but she goes by Amaretto as a stripper.
When she's serving them, and she remembers Keith from somewhere, and she keeps
But
waving
he
at him in a very silly, cute, innocent way. She's like waving. She's like, "I'm your waitress. My name is Amaretto." Not really, but yeah, or something like that. And she's like, "Remember me?" And of course, Duncan's like, "I'd remember that," or something like that.
Then he gives like a 50, and he's like, "Do you have any friends that will remember me?" And she takes the 50, and she's just like, "No." So I don't know. Maybe she used that to pay for the beers. But David, I mean, we'll get into it. But to me, Allison is the only character here that's not
wholesome and out of place,
though. Because
Wholesome
it
and
seems
out
like
of place.
everyone is a vampire besides her.
Yeah, so you look at, let's set this up. So Keith basically does not recognize Allison, aka Amaretto, the wait. She keeps trying to hint at him and like kind of show things to him, like try to like, she spins a bottle and she's like, and then she gets upset because he doesn't remember.
Probably like, what the hell?
So Vic says, "I give you Katrina."
Gentlemen, I give you Katrina.
And here comes Miss Grace Jones. Now, I have notes on this. The music starts, and it is a song sung by Grace Jones. It's very
unreleased, unfortunately.
I know and some of the lyrics definitely go with the theme. There's a part of the song and it's very like
it's synthy. It's like a synthesizer.
It's like a
but
synth
it's Grace
pop.
Jones.
It's like synth pop / like I could see Duran Duran-esque kind of vibe, but like darker. And she's saying stuff about she still remembers her time in the sun and this and that.
Yes.
If you don't like listen, you won't catch the words.
Yes.
But you see Grace Jones starting with this kind of cloak thing that zippers on both sides.
Red, like a graduation-esque outfit.
She's got big, bright red hair, and her face is painted white with big red lips. She's actually sitting on what looks like a Keith Haring. Is it Keith Haring? Keith Haring, the artist Keith Haring, which from the 90s, right?
This is such a Grace... I mean, Grace had to have had put this together. The chair is a Grace Jones-esque look. The outfit... I mean, we'll get into it when she takes off the cloak. But, David, first thought, Ronald McDonald?
Bright Ronald McDonald hair.
Red, like, it is the reddest hair.
But it's like split down the middle. It almost looks like a page boy sort of a haircut. But it could also look like hair that you would see like the Egyptian with the cut where they put the thing.
Which is heavily suggested that she has multiple lives as an Egyptian. Basically, she was an Egyptian, we believe, that became a vampire is what I got it from it. But
so she's performing, she's doing these animalistic things that she looks like an animal, cat crawling. She's clawing. She looks like a cat. She looks like, again, I'm going to reference Hungry Like the Wolf, where the woman's crawling around and gyrating and stuff. She gyrates on this Keith Haring chair, which is basically a body with headless body. She jumps on it and straddles the neck like she's...
My favorite part is when they show the behind the seat from the back when she jumps on the chair, and the headless part of it is in her crotch, but she's like holding on to the neck, and she's just like...
And she tilts back and she starts shaking her hair. Then she lays across the arms and shakes her butt and does this stuff. She takes off her unzips again, and she has on these metal disc sort of bustier, not a bustier, bra,
Jones,
and like
Grace Jones
and
look.
her body is painted with like kind of a tribal symbol. So
Yes.
not exactly the Keith Haring, but chair that she has. That has to be Keith Haring chair. That has to be. I would think.
I'm sure.
And I just think to myself, this is probably what she did when she was at Studio 54.
I was going to say, talk about a performance artist piece.
Yes.
When I saw it for the first time back in the day, when we were watching it, I remember us rewinding this part because it was so... I think it's the best part of the movie.
Certainly.
Still, it is the highlight.
It definitely leaves an impression.
Why would these men... I mean, and they do this part after she's done with this performance, because she ends it like she's licking her hands. She ends it like she's a cat, like David said, but like...
She ends it where she's nestling her head in
like a kitten,
nestling her head in the crotch of this...
Like comfort, like she's getting comforted almost into the crotch.
Of this chair statue chair thing.
But they do cut to the crowd. They give it, it's a jokey part for a moment.
Like, they don't know what to believe. They don't know how to take it. And then someone starts clapping.
Then they act like it's the best thing they've ever seen. And AJ is going to Keith from across the room. That's the one. That's the one for tonight. What part of this, David, what part of this whole performance read to him that this is the woman for the college fraternity? Did he, A, want to scare the shit out of them back? Or, I mean, did they really think that this was the sexiest, edgiest performance?
I don't see, like, I'm not a straight man, but what I can tell you is that most of the men that I know, I don't think they'd necessarily be into that unless they're into something pretty, like, kinky. And I don't even think it was kinky. It was just very performance arty.
It's weird. It's performance art. Yeah.
Most men I know are more attracted to their girl or a woman wearing like a pair of jeans and putting on their jersey, like sports jersey or something, like or like a wife beater or something. I don't know. Like, that's what I get. Listen, it is what it is. I think that you also get the impression that Katrina runs this place. She is controlling it, and if she wants to go out and gyrate on a Keith Haring chair and wear this stuff, that's her prerogative. And Vic at some point refers to her as that queen bitch.
Yes.
And I know he ain't talking to me.
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? There is something here that says Vamp, Keith Haring, remembering Keith Haring's. Yes, his legendary chair for Vamp, the original. Yeah. Okay. So yes, that is his legendary chair.
Your
from
brother,
Vamp.
I'm so international that I knew that was a Keith Haring. You have to understand
and here he
something.
is. He painted Grace Jones as well.
You have to understand that I am international, and I know
the culture that you bring here, the culture that you brought to us.
I should be getting paid for this. No, really. Remember the Best of Beyond gift cards.
Remember the strippers that you hired. So Katrina does that performance, David, and AJ is taken backstage by one of the fellow strippers / waitresses that work there. Mm-hmm. He comes across Katrina's. I like her.
Well, actually,
backstage.
I wanted to say something. He goes behind the curtain, so to speak, and the first thing he sees is two strippers doing each other's makeup through a faux mirror. Like this has been done many times in different movies under different contexts or different shows, like or like performances where like there's two dancers trying to mirror each other, like, but there is a neon light that goes around, but there's no mirror between, and these strippers are both doing their makeup, which again, if you don't
makes
pick up, it implies that they're vampires and they can't see their reflection, so they're doing each other's makeup. Horribly, I might add, but. Listen.
Horribly, I might add. Oh my god. They're dead, David. They're dead.
Just because you're dead doesn't mean you have to look like trash.
But that is a good point. And I also do want to say, did you notice throughout the whole movie, they did a whole thing with Allison? Is she? Isn't she?
They did a lot of jump scares with her. They did a lot of like out of frame where there's a mirror. She walked away before you could see if she could cast a reflection. That she appeared very quickly, that she was kind of fearless about doing things.
She's working in this place where everyone basically is
She was referred to as the new girl.
So what makes me almost think that they hire waitresses and then maybe slowly they convert them over to being vampires?
Yeah, maybe. Another thing that Vic says about one of the strippers, I have to say, she's not much upstairs, but what a staircase.
I gotta say, Vic's commentary throughout the whole thing is amazing. It's a standout character.
He wants to be Vegas. One of the Rat Pack in Vegas desperately in his mind. He thinks by putting little umbrellas in drinks, he's like, that's class. So I actually used to use that line many times when I would buy little umbrellas for drinks. And I'm like, that's class. And I never remembered where I came from, but I do now.
We get the sense that Vic is he a vampire, David? Because at one point he does feed off Katrina. She cuts her wrist.
Because this is a terrible habit. This is a terrible habit. It's terrible. He's like.
So is it something that's keeping him alive, kind of thing? Is he a Renfield?
Yes, because he eats roaches.
Okay, so he's him and that big guy.
He's Renfield.
That also is in love with Grace,
who uses him as a feeding pincushion. She feeds off him.
He's literally
got puncture marks all over his body. Keith sees him in the bathroom. So now you've got AJ in Katrina's abode. commode, like sitting on a couch that's got plastic on it, which we would know all about that back in the day. Italian families who put plastic on their furniture.
But and they make a part of it that he puts his hand down, so just in case you don't notice that, yeah, there's plastic here. We know because it's
easy
for
cleanup.
The blood,
Yeah.
But what is he thinking? I think he's thinking about other things, like, oh, this is
easy.
She's
cleanup.
ready for anything.
Yeah.
Easy cleanup again. That's true. But this is when she comes out. She got that makeup off rather quickly. I mean, the full-on white paint and then the body, and she has that wrap on her head that she's got that Shayna-esque gem hair now. Like that's her real hair, and it literally is triangular. But she has this whole triangular look too with the metal on her head, and he's taken by her. I mean, Grace Jones is beautiful, but she's not for everybody.
You know, our aunt has this expression, I'm sure other people have heard it. There's very moldy slice of bread, there's a moldy slice of cheese. Now, that really means even unattractive people will find another quote unquote, and that's almost a mean thing to say, but I don't mean it like that. I mean, there's somebody for everybody, and there's something that everybody enjoys or likes. So maybe it's a fantasy. I mean, honestly, maybe that would be a fantasy he would like. I mean,
But he was gonna have sex with her first?
Yeah, she threw him on she took control of the situation. She threw him down. She started unbuttoning his clothes and everything, and she got on top of him.
Oh my god. So Grace does this whole thing. She's licking him. She's like doing little lick bites up all over his body.
His nipples, his boo-boos, as my children would call them, boo-boos.
His boo-boos. And he's loving it. He's loving it. And at one point there's a shot that she like riles forward. She puts her head upward and she transforms. And I have to say, for anything, the vampire makeup in this movie is fantastic. It was a lower budget movie at the time, but
see, I actually wrote that as well, and I actually went a step further. They actually show her tearing at his flesh and his neck, and her licking it and biting it and drawing blood from it. Usually in vampire movies, you see a little bit of blood running down the back.
Yes.
You see a puncture mark. You actually see her tear the flesh, and then you see her engulfing the flesh and tonguing it and sucking. Like it was actually, I wrote it as it's a very graphic. I put neck feeding and tongue teeth thing, but it's very graphic, and actually that brought it back to much more of a horror for me at that point, because that was really. And she holds him down, like he sees her changing, and she like laughs because he tries to push and fight, and she laughs and pushes his arms back.
David, and then this is one of my favorite moments, because I think you'll remember why I like this so much. They show a close-up of her feet, and they transform. Her feet also transform as a vampire, and she has long toenails. The long toenails here. I'm thinking of Gloria. Because that's the first thing I thought of. These people are having sex, and they show a short story. I had a friend. She was from Peru. She spoke not too much English. Oh my god, she was a sexual lady, and she used to tell me that she kept her toenails longer because she would grasp onto her husband's legs like this. So when I saw Grace Jones's feet transform into vampire feet too, that's the first time I've ever seen vampire also transform their feet when they transform into a vampire. But she had these long nails, and she's basically holding him down, and that's exactly what
laughing.
I thought of. She's holding the man down. Talons on the feet are multi-purpose, I have to say, especially for a vampire. So maybe this is where it all comes from. AJ is dead now.
Oh, you know, one thing we didn't mention, which was interesting, when AJ first walks into her boudoir area, there's these plastic coverings on hangers that look like they're almost like costumes in plastic bags.
Yes.
But actually, they're plastic body bags.
That is a great point. There's a lot of clues that
you know what actually I a thought that came to me, and I should not sympathize with the bad guy, so to speak. But could you imagine being a vampire all these years and being Egyptian? I mean, think of it. She has like a gold sarcophagus in the thing. She may have been royalty even. Not that that means anything, but to be...
For her, it does.
To be... No, but to be... I don't... How do I put this? Because I'm not trying to be judgmental. But coming from that and having to end up being a stripper at a strip club in a very seedy, dirty, nasty, unclean area. Now, you know what? When people see vampires, they always assume, oh, they enjoy this. They like... If I was a vampire, unless you lose all sense of who you ever were, the last thing I would want to do is live in a sewer with rats crawling over me. The last thing I would want to do is be a stripper because I have no other choice to do it. If I was a vampire, I would want to live like high on the hog. Like, I'd be the vampire that, like, gets into, like, the vault and steals the money so I can live in, like, a mansion. You know what I mean? Like, I am not going to be living
but David,
in
that
squalor
ending,
in a sewer.
And that's the whole thing. Just to jump around, we do see that the vampires, when it is time to go to sleep, they sleep in the sewer, like David said. Why are they in the sewer when they could be in that strip club? Clearly, she has a whole back dressing room. It's like, looks like she lives there. There was a bed and everything. So,
I mean, and I understand, like, you know, the folklore is that vampires have to live in coffins with the dirt from their native land or whatever, so to speak, or whatever. That's fine, but my coffin would not be in a sewer.
And she literally has her Egyptian sarcophagus that they must have, God knows what they spent on that to make it a Grace Jones. I would love to, God, talk about movie props. I want the Grace Jones sarcophagus with her face on it somewhere. But did this not bring you back to our review of Jason Takes Manhattan? Because why the hell is there that
toxic waste and gasoline or flammable liquids everywhere? If I was a vampire, I certainly wouldn't have flammable liquids laying about.
And it's in the room. It's in the room with them, and there's no cap on top of this gas tank.
So we're jumping ahead. So she kills AJ and Keith at this point. Keith and Duncan and Allison are trying to find the friend.
But they leave Duncan at the strip club while Allison says she knows a hotel or a apartment building where he might have left with one of the strippers.
With one of the ho-hos.
So she takes Keith there. And honestly, David, this is the part of the film that it drops a little for me. Because yes, it does set up that this is a town, like a Salem's Lot-esque town where everyone is vampires, evidently. The little girl, this one, that one. But there's a part where Keith is stuck in an elevator and he's almost beheaded. Yes, it's a scary scene, but it's like almost...
Well, they were trying to get rid of him. Vic says to Katrina that she's pissed off that... So you also find out that the reason why these vampires do what they do, the strip club, is that they have a single man special where you come in by yourself. They're looking for transient people. They're looking for people that don't have family or friends that would miss them. And you do find out that there's a lot of guys that are passed out on the tables in these dark corners, but they've been fed on by the vampire chicks and they're getting rid of the bodies.
Anyone want to claim this guy?
Yeah, that's the Vic goes, yeah, anybody want to get this guy over here? Because he's, you know...
So basically every night, the people that come to the club are just wiped out, I'm assuming.
I guess to some point, yeah.
And then they just start fresh the next day.
I guess so, and then the club has a deal with like sanitation. The vampire that runs the dumpsters, and he takes the dumpsters with the dead bodies. So,
which is where they dumped Keith's body.
So at some point, they go to a hotel. Dee Pfeiffer, aka Allison, gets separated from Keith. Keith almost gets decapitated or in a elevator, which was the way to kill him. When he escapes, the clerk at the desk at the hotel calls Vic and Katrina to say he escaped. So then he is faced with a car of albinos, and Snowball comes out, and Keith says to him, "How's it hanging?" Snowball.
Are we supposed to think that they're also vampires? That why they made them albinos?
They're not vampires.
No, but do they want? Is that another setup?
But I don't understand.
Because it seems like there's a lot of like bait and switch.
This is like the town of like deviants. This is like John Waters. This is like Mortsville in Desperate Living. Like this towns of deviants and perverts and vampires and murderers and whatever else you can throw. You know. So the albinos come after him. He goes down into the sewer. Meanwhile, there is some point in the movie where he calls the police because he does find his friend's body in a dumpster, killed and left for dead. So in order to get out of that, because the police are coming, they revive Keith, so they must bring him back to make him a vampire. So to make the police believe that he's not dead. And basically the police go, "Why are you making us come? We don't come down to this part of the town. Get out of here. We don't come to this place. It's horrible. What are you doing?" There's a point then where Keith is confronted by AJ. He says he's hungry. He wants to feed. He's a vampire now.
Come on, man. Just take me out. Just kill me. I can't go on like this. AJ. Come on! Shit. Can you? Even though you know it works, you can't. It does work, you know. The fire, the wooden stakes, the sunlight. Got a list right here somewhere. You're ready to die for me, aren't you? You would. Because you can't believe that I'm not me anymore. That maybe there's something left, huh?
I love this scene because it actually shows that he was able to control it enough. And it's a great scene for friends to show friendship in a movie because Keith is willing to be killed or eaten by AJ because that's his friend.
Eaten.
And AJ
Eaten. You said eaten.
He gonna be drink upon.
So,
he's gonna get
no,
him.
but you said Keith is Keith is willing to be eaten. Is that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's willing to be eaten.
He says, "Take what you can to hold you over," and he's like, "I would kill you."
I think that was really nice, but then AJ flips a piece of wood around as he's going to bite him, so it impales himself. So he sacrifices himself so he doesn't kill his friend, which is great. So at this point, Allison and Keith become the main stars, and Duncan, we find out.
So Duncan is drunk. There's vampires guarding every exit, and Vic basically tells him there's no way out. This is it. You're gonna die. So this is where I say it's very Shaun of the Dead, the bar fire, and the liquor cellar, because he notices that there's this liquor cellar underneath the bar. Keith is actually a pretty smart guy. So he says to Vic, "Can I have me and my friends have one last drink? Oh, make it a double. Give me the whole bottle." And he picks out the most highest alcohol content so that he knows it's flammable. So he starts dropping it all over the place, pretending he's drunk. He tells his friend Allison to pretend that she's, like to drop it all over, and they all do this, and then he sets fire to the bar. Vampires don't like fire.
But honestly, did it need that? There's probably people spilled shit everywhere in that bar.
Well,
the bar itself is probably flammable from all the shit on it.
It is what it is. He sets fire to the bar. They go down the cellar, the cellar, and go up. This is totally Shaun of the Dead.
The exact
This
thing,
is before
right?
Shaun of the Dead, so Shaun of the Dead may have probably took this. They go up and they actually go up.
And from Dusk Till Dawn, I want to say, they ripped off Vamp. Well,
she could have been in Dusk Till Dawn if she had just learned to speak some lines. So, David, we're going to do some Schitt's Creek. So they go up the service elevator to the street.
Yes.
And they find out that the vampires are still all over the place, right?
They own this town.
We own this town.
Because they take on the albino gang with Snow. At one point. What gang is this? He says, Billy Drago. And then that little girl jumps on a vampire. She lunges at his
The
neck.
vampires kill the albinos, go for the albinos and their hoes. And
those poor ladies.
You see Allison. This is when Allison and Keith ended up in the sewer, right?
They're in a car in between.
Yeah, like they almost get crushed by...
But the car explodes by getting into an accident, but Duncan, who had just transformed into a vampire, was in the back seat.
Yeah.
So at some point when they left him to go to that apartment building,
he was
I'm
fed
assuming
on.
he was... And he's in the car on flames because, like I said, the car just explodes by...
No, they crush it. They use... The guy has like the stuff from the dumpster truck, like the garbage truck.
But then why does it go on fire,
Because he hits the gas tank. He's got those two things that lift up dumpsters. He rams it into the car.
Because it goes on fire, and Duncan's inside, and he's like, "Hey, you guys!" It's like the Goonies. "Hey, you guys!" And he is now dead. So now it is the sewers.
Go.
And we find that Keith and Amaretto, Allison, they discover coffins of the vampires. But David, do you like that part when they're all crawling back in? I guess it's like the strippers. There's that one guy who was eating the rats earlier in the sewer. And what is he like the low budget vampire? Because he gets like this little white, looks like a little white box. He's on the floor. The rest of them are in like shelving units, but he just goes into his little box. This is when they realize that there's gasoline open all over the place.
Or flammable
in vials.
liquids. And then you also find
In
out at
the
some point
room.
Allison reveals that her name is Allison. They played Spin the Bottle at a party when they were very young, and that he saved her from having to kiss some boy that she didn't like or something.
And AJ would have known, she said. He would have remembered her, but he unfortunately was dead. We had a grand finale in the sewers. They discover the nest of the vampires, which they set aflame, but Allison is grabbed and held hostage by Katrina. So at this point, Grace Jones is bald. She's lost all of the...
She got burnt, right?
The pleasantries.
Was she in the fire, or does it just happen?
No, she's just like, I think she just doesn't have any of her costumes on. Like, she's just pure like, I am vampire now, because she's seen almost as that, just as the vampire. At one point, Keith found a bow and arrow at a store that they broke into, and he shoots Grace, Katrina through the mouth. And there's this scene where she's pulling her mouth off of the arrow that's, she's attached
But
to
also,
the
Allison
wall. Allison
takes a pipe and stabs her through the chest with a pipe, too.
But it doesn't do anything because it's not wood, we assume. So there's a point that she's still coming towards her, and Keith realizes, he looks up and he sees that there's light coming through. So he hits the ceiling, and he traps basically Katrina in between two beams of light from the ceiling. And then, David, he gives her the sunlight bath, and she turns into tar, basically. Like, her skull looks like a skull that's a tar skull. And they do this thing like she's melting off. It's a really cool effect. And they do another jump scare when her skeleton comes alive. And I sent David a picture I'd never noticed before, but there's a scene where her skeleton just comes up and gives the finger, basically, and then just dies again. But it was the first time I noticed there's a person's hand holding up the skeleton hand at the end.
So it was a mistake.
But never noticed that prior. So we find out that Keith actually thinks that Allison might be a vampire as well, because after this is over with and they think the day is over, he climbs up and he opens the sewer, and he makes her go up first to see the light.
He's like, I want you to see something. And he makes her get to hit the light. She's like, why would you do that?
And honestly, it's smart that he thought that way. Yeah. They are trapped again because the gigantic bouncer who's in love with Grace Jones, Lad, I think it says right here, he is about to take them when did not really die, and he saves the day. Because, David, he was stabbed with...
Formica.
Who knew?
That's exactly what he says. Who knew?
Did you like that twist ending? Did you like that it wasn't actually wood?
So, and then they discuss, like, he's going to take care of it. They make him, he's like, you don't trust me? Come down to the sewer. So they end up walking above the sewer, and he's below the sewer, walking the same line back to wherever they're going.
And he says he'll do night school.
And they walk out into they walk into the sunset, so to speak. Two things I didn't care for. I really wish Katrina, having lived all these years, was a little smarter about how she did things.
Yes.
I think it was a little careless I would think you always see these vampire things where they've lived for centuries, so they're a little bit more intelligent about the way they
You would think.
Things. That's one. Two, I like the fact that his friend's alive, but I don't know to what end is that going to be issues for their relationship or the friendship, because he can't be in the sunlight and he is a vampire.
I almost wonder if they were trying to plan, though, a sequel where it was almost like a buddy vampire thing where he's a vampire. But I gotta say, I love this movie for what it is, David. A Grace Jones vehicle, the comedy. I think the cast is really likable. Everyone really gives it their all. I remember years ago listening to the commentary with Keith, Debbie Pfeiffer, and the actor who plays Duncan, and they had a ball making this movie.
What did they say about Grace Jones? Was she funny?
They all kind of alluded that it was hard to work with her because of, I guess, all the things that she wouldn't show up. Which almost makes me think, David, the reason why the ending happened as it is, I wonder if it's because they kept trying to get her for days and she wouldn't show up and they just had to kill her like that. I think they wonder if they just had because it almost seems like it is almost anticlimactic.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, honestly, every dog has his day, so to speak. So there is like they survive. I mean, think about it. If she survived, they'd be worried about like her coming back after them at some point. It's like Fright Night, like. Well,
they probably wanted something like that.
Welcome to Fright Night 2.
Welcome to Katrina
2.
That's right. So, wow, that is our first episode back with Vamp. So, David, like I said, it's not the best 80s horror comedy movie. I think it really is because of Grace and the sequence and the song. Because I will say, again, as much as I love the movie, there are times when the pacing might be off, and it's that whole when Keith and Allison go off to the apartment building. I know it was supposed to set up things, but...
They need to redo it with Lady Gaga as Katrina.
Oh, God, she would. She
did such a good job in American Horror Story.
I'm gonna say that's basically what it is.
The Countess.
I really think that really was heavily inspired by everyone.
There's a lot of things, like I told you. The if you look at the thing now, it could be coincidence, but honestly, we all draw stuff from other things. Like the fact that I told you that I say that's class. Even after all these years, we saw this when we were kids. About the little umbrella and the drinks. But I do it, and it's funny. the scene,
Shaun of the
Shaun of
Dead.
the Dead, the
Dusk Till
Dusk
Dawn.
Till Dawn.
Dusk Till
I mean,
Dawn. So again, I mean, it's not the best 80s vampire movie by any means,
No, not at
but I
all.
think for one-time viewing, I think that it's great. David, how many Grace Jones would you give this film? out of 5 Graces.
5 Graces. The performance of the dancing performance does it for me. Honestly, I don't think the plot was bad at all. Perfectly honest, as a horror film, yeah, it doesn't have a lot of notoriety and this and that. Honestly, I think it's a solid film for the 80s. Totally solid film. I think the cinematography was good. I wasn't put off. It wasn't like Dark Shadows where the wall shook when you shut a door or anything like that. It actually was pretty solid as a film.
Did you notice that green and pink filter that they used in every scene?
Did you notice
the sewer?
Yeah, but I thought that was like some sort of like neon.
Loved it. I loved it.
I thought it was very 80s.
Very 80s, but it almost is like it literally followed them from everywhere. It was in the sewer, the strip club. It was just neon pink and green, but I loved it.
The whole premise worked for me, honestly. I actually think if it was redone, I think they could do a really good job with it. I don't think it's even close. It's not going down in the Hall of Fame of top 10 vampire movies or anything like that, obviously, but the plot was good. I would have liked to have seen Grace Jones do some more crazy vampire stuff, and probably they may have done that. Maybe she honestly, no offense, Grace, maybe she ruined the film because she wasn't available and this and that. Maybe it would have been more of a Ghostbusters, like where it was more known. You know what I mean? Like
Right. But you know what? I wonder what the dialogue they cut for her. I would have loved to have seen her deliver those vampire dialogues. Although maybe the non-speaking works for her character, but I wonder what she would have said, because I could totally see her commanding a scene if she was just like, "Get them!" You know, like in her Grace Jones-esque Roboto.
Mr. Roboto?
Oh goodness, Radical Ones.
We still can't pronounce things, Radical Ones. Same bad channel, same speech impediment.
That was another episode of the Radical Retro Rewind podcast. You can always find David after dark on Instagram. Universal Appeal 2020, all one word. And the Radical Retro Rewind podcast, also one word, on Instagram, where we're always updating. We're also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, radio,
and we actually
recently
a milestone for us. A month or two ago, we actually hit 2,000
streams of audio, which doesn't even count our YouTube streams. So I guess we're making an impact. People are listening to us. Thank you so much.
I'm excited. I hope that people catches on more. I really do. I hope people really enjoy it. And again, as always, we always take suggestions. Please give us a movie. The holidays are coming up. If there's a holiday movie that you want to review or talk about, definitely hit us up before it gets too late.
And we have a whole month planned for you. With this month, we are in the Halloween season. We're officially back, in the whole month we will be giving you spooky yet fun shows. So thank you again, Radical Ones, and join us every Friday here on the Radical Retro Rewind.
Peace out.
Goodbye.